In this lesson, we will learn about the psychological characteristics of the elderly. Various physiological changes and declines in the elderly affect their psychological activities to a greater or lesser extent. Due to the physiological changes and gradual decline of various systems, the brain's nutritional supply is insufficient, which affects the brain's function and leads to the decline of psychological activities. The elderly exhibit different characteristics in terms of perception, attention, memory, thinking, emotion, will, temperament, personality, and beliefs. 1. Perceptual characteristics. Human perception of objects primarily involves spatial perception, temporal perception, and motion perception. These perceptions mainly rely on visual cues provided by the eyes, followed by auditory, olfactory, gustatory, and kinesthetic senses. Due to the decline in various sensory abilities, the elderly's perceptual ability is also affected. Sometimes, they may have an accurate perception of objective things, resulting in illusions. For example, when an elderly person with declining perceptual ability crosses the road, they may mistake a motorcycle speeding from a distance for a bicycle and mistakenly believe they have enough time to cross the road, eventually leading to a traffic accident. Therefore, special attention should be paid to the traffic safety of the elderly. They should wear eye-catching signs when going out, be accompanied when crossing the road, and it is advisable for the elderly not to drive. In addition, the living environment of the elderly should be orderly, simple, and quiet, and their commonly used items should be clearly distinguishable. 2. Attention characteristics. The atrophy and reduction of brain cells in the elderly lead to a significant decline in attention, which has a great impact on their lives. For example, slow acceptance of new things, feeling tired after a slightly long time of learning or thinking, narrow range of interests, etc. Based on the attention characteristics of the elderly, healthcare workers should pay attention to the following in their work. When introducing new things to the elderly, the language should be as concise and easy to understand as possible. Arrange shorter periods of time for the elderly to work and study. Organize vivid and distinctive activities for the elderly to increase their life enjoyment as much as possible. 3. Memory characteristics. The atrophy and reduction of brain cells in the elderly cause a decline in memory, especially a significant decline in recent memory. The atrophy and reduction of brain cells in the elderly cause a decline in memory, especially a significant. The elderly may forget things that just happened, such as the medication taken half an hour ago. The elderly may also be unable to find the things they need, not know what to do, or forget others' reminders. Therefore, they always need to be reminded by others or keep a memo. Therefore, the elderly should have a regular life, keep their daily items in fixed positions, develop good living habits, and keep a notebook at hand to write down the things that need to be done to avoid forgetting. 4. Thinking characteristics. Thinking is the indirect and generalized reflection of objective reality by the human brain, which reflects the essence and internal laws of things and is the core of intelligence. Due to the decline in memory ability, the elderly form concepts slowly, and their thinking process is affected. However, due to their rich experience, the elderly may have a more accurate understanding of certain things. 5. Emotional characteristics. Human emotional responses are physiological and psychological reactions involving multiple organs such as the human brain, thalamus, and pituitary gland. The brain cells and endocrine tissue cells of the elderly atrophy and decrease. When emotional responses occur, the speed and quantity of chemical transmitters released by the endocrine glands slow down and decrease. Therefore, the emotional responses of the elderly are not as intense as those of young people. On the other hand, due to brain atrophy or softening, the elderly are emotionally fragile, sometimes unable to control themselves, prone to impulsivity, and have rapid emotional changes. 6. Characteristics of will, temperament, and personality. Due to the gradual decline in energy and physical strength, the will of most elderly people is not as strong as that of young and middle-aged people. Due to the strong inhibition and weak excitement of the nervous process in the elderly, they show temperaments such as calmness, quietness, slowness, and self-confidence in their actions and activities. The personality of the elderly tends to evolve towards two extremes. One extreme is the strengthening of personality, such as increased self-esteem, stubbornness, and impatience. The other extreme is the weakening of personality, such as suspicion and lack of self-confidence. Therefore, the elderly often show characteristics such as caution, stubbornness, and rigidity. Due to the narrow range of interests and reduced social interaction, the elderly are prone to loneliness and isolation. The changes in some psychological activities brought about by aging and the decline of physiological functions are inevitable. However, modern psychological research believes that psychological aging does not necessarily develop in parallel with physiological aging, and the timing of psychological aging is related to an individual's psychological ability. There are 4 age standards for humans, namely physiological age, psychological age, social age, and interpersonal relationship age. The physiological age basically stops around the age of 60, and whether a person is aged or capable mainly depends on the latter 3 age standards. The standards of psychological aging include not only ability issues, but also life attitude, desire to learn, ability to appreciate and enjoy satisfaction and happiness, breadth of interests, and human willpower, etc. In terms of the development of aging, an individual's life motivation is particularly important. After a person retires and gives up social responsibilities such as housework, if they do not update and pursue improvements in appearance, attitude, lifestyle, etc., they may age quickly. Therefore, if you want to maintain a youthful state, you must first maintain a vibrant inner self. Well, that's all for this lesson.